Hello, my name is Jeff Jamilo, and today I'm going to talk about heroes, villains, and other labels. A label is nothing more than a mechanism to distinguish ourselves from others. I would like to think we're all humans, but depends on how you look at that one. There's also a theory out there that all of us are heroes. All of us are villains. I don't know about you. I've talked to people who other people call heroes, and they don't normally call themselves heroes at all. They usually just say that, hey, I just did what I did. It was instinctual. I don't throw whatever lipstick label on there you want. I just did what I needed to do. I ran to, I was trained to help people, so I went over and helped the person. I did CPR, or I ran into the fire that pulled the person out. It was more instinctual than it was being a hero. Oddly enough, I actually think in a Deadpool movie, when that Iron guy, I can't remember his name, he said, you're a hero once or twice in your life, and that's about it. That is true. You are getting little breadcrumbs in movies. And there's a real lot of truth to that you're not a hero every day. As a matter of fact, you're not a villain every day either. You could be a, hero at home and a villain at work. It's depends which role they need you in. But what's interesting about villains is villains are the same way. As in the last one, I talked briefly about Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler, as horrible of a person and evil as a person as he was, he still loved his dog and he loved his mistress. Didn't have a wife, but he had a mistress. And I will guarantee you that they think they loved him. That he loved him. So that's what's kind of weird about it is there's even villains can be heroes sometimes. Now, mind you, I'm not saying he's a good person. I wouldn't say I want him over, to have a drink with him. Just saying. Now, there's also the idea that everyone is a star in their own story. You're the head of your own story. And that being said, that means I have the choice. Do I want to be the hero or do I want to be the villain? It's your story. You can do whatever you want. Hey, you can go back and forth if you want. Labels are just labels. It's as much as people like to label people. Some people, you're good, you're bad, you're evil. Mm-hmm. Even the most evil people on the planet actually had good intentions to some people. So, literally, what I find is that it's better when you balance the good and the bad. So you're kind of in the middle. You're not always too good. You're not always a hero. You're not always a villain. Or you're not always a real goody two-shoes, and you're not always a rotten, horrible wrench. So that's what I find effective. Now, it doesn't mean I'm not going to go out and, I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to go, commit a couple crimes. No, not really. It's just a reminder that we want to try to keep the even road. Clearly, God wants us to take the high road. And the high road is usually the one with the least amount of traffic and the most bumps. But it's also the one you learn the most at. Generally, I've always taken the high road in my life. As much as it wasn't easy, I took it anyway. Interesting story about a person I went to school with. Now, I went to middle school with this person, and then high school, they went to a different high school. I went over and saw her. I was visiting my brother at college, local college, and I was at the library waiting for him. And this girl came up to me, and she looked vaguely familiar. It's the person that I remember, that I met back in the day in middle school. I sat next to her for like 2 classes forever. Didn't know she had a crush on me and all. But one of the things she said is that I inspired her. I'm like, what? I'm thinking, I don't know. Back in my youth, I was pretty much a goofball, so it was more comedy than anything else. I'm like, what could I have, what did I say? And she wouldn't tell me. But she said, whatever I did say, it changed her life. And I'm like, weird. Or is it? Friendly reminder to people. You could be a hero in someone's story and not even know it. Or you can be a villain in someone's story and not even know it. You took someone's parking spot that you didn't, that they had their name on it or something, You didn't know, so you're a villain today. Or you went over and you helped someone by holding the door open for them. You're someone's hero today. We're back to that good and bad karma. The more good deeds you do, the more good karma you accrue. But I thought that would be a very interesting story for you, because you never know when things are going to pop up. And usually if you help someone out, they usually tell you that you helped them out. That was a rare case where they actually couldn't tell me what I said, because I'm like, oh. But later in life, other people have came back and said the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, you said this. And I'm like, okay, well, I talked about aliens, politics, this, war, and I somehow worked that in, and you listen to that. It's like, especially during a certain period of time, you look at it and say, look at this other stuff that I talked about. But it all it took was this one piece, this one seed that stuck with you. What's interesting about those interesting seeds that you put in people like that is that you'll put a seed in there, and then once they find out or try what you said, may want to try this, if they actually do try it and it works, it connects all the dots to the rest of the seeds, and they start using other seeds that you've planted and on their way. And I do believe that's how the early Christian system worked, is you planted a seed and then you moved on. Because if you look in the Bible, it says that the apostles were not supposed to, if some people hated you, oh wait, thank you for playing, have a nice great day, move to the next house. Don't stick around. It's because you planted a seed, move on. Now, what's also interesting is talking about heroes and villains. All children go to heaven. And I use the word children very loosely because biblically, children are less than 30 years old. If you look at most old-time documents, you're a child until you're 30, which is kind of weird by the way we're thinking right now. I go, or is it? When I was 30, well, I don't know. I got married at 30. So, interesting. So there might be some truth to that. But this is what I do believe. There's certain periods in your life that are sectioned out. They're like, you can almost think of them like 20-year increments. 0 to 30, at the age of 30, you should be in your career track by now. If you're not in your career track, you pretty much won't be for another 20 years, which is terrible. It's just generally the way business handles it. It's like, well, if you're 30 years old and, try again in 50. And usually 30 to 50 is the next bracket where if you're not you could change jobs, you can do whatever, but 30 to 50 is the next bracket. And 50, whatever job you're there, you're kind of expected to stay in that for the rest of your life. But there's another switch over at 70. 70 usually is a switch over of, I'm retired, I'm out of here. I'm tired of working so much. So you basically got the 0 to 30 group, to 30 to 50, 50 to 70, and 70 to on. I'll tell you right now, 0 to 30, I didn't know jack of anything. I did not know anything. And that's being honest. I don't think anyone does. I was just smart enough to know not to have children when I was 18 years old. A lot of people did that story. Especially I grew up with. A lot of people had kids. So they're going through their first divorce, 21, 22, 23 years old. I decided I'm going to hold off all that until, my career's set. So my career was already set when I was 30. and then I got married. But, as I said, all children go to heaven. And what I mean by that, as long as they renounce God or do anything like that, they should pretty much be going to heaven. Just like all dogs go to heaven. There's just a lot of truth to that. You may not believe it, but there's a lot of truth to that. Now, I also want to make a mention that when you look at the sliding scale of heroes and villains, sometimes it's a very subjective decision of which is which. Sometimes I was a hero to my stepdaughters. Sometimes I was a villain to my stepdaughters. Reason is I was sometimes a villain, so I didn't agree with them just for the simple fact of they were going to use me for some particular reason. Sometimes I was the hero, but you can't be the hero all the time, because then they take advantage of that. So it's kind of a weird thing. Same thing you do with work most of the time too, is you want to have a little bit of a balance between good and the bad, the hero and the villain. Smart, how's it go? Smarter minds prevail. I generally don't like labels in general. I think they're terrible. But everyone likes to live and die by their labels. Like, oh, I'm gay, I'm this, I'm that. And I'm like, doesn't matter. Why are you advertising? First of all, I generally do not advertise any labels. The only label that I will advertise is I'm a male. Why? Because if you can't figure out I'm a male by looking at me, you got a problem. Maybe we need to get your vision checked or mental capacity checked. But the point as I said, to me it's a very simple. I don't like labels at all. I try not to label people. Today you're a villain, tomorrow you're a hero. In my life, I had actually a bully when I was in a Catholic school. I got beat on by a Christian school bully. Okay, after 10 minutes, I turned around and I started whelping him, and then finally we both gave up, and we became friends for almost a year. So, from villain to hero. But then he also realized that poor child, like myself, we have something in common, that we're beat up by our parents. I was spanked a lot with a belt. He was hit a lot when he was a kid. So there's an awful lot of that going around. So at the time, so you learn to have a little bit more compassion. So I learned not to listen to labels. Now, I've also been told by the Lord when labels / red flags, when someone tells you they're a red flag, you should maybe listen to them. I agree with that, because in the past I have not. So I'll be listening to all red flags, so it should be interesting for future dating. But as I said, heroes and villains, it's your story. Choose what you want to do. The Lord prefers that you be more hero than villain. And generally, the higher up you go, spiritually, the more of a hero you are, in a way. I don't like to use the word hero for that. You get a higher vibration, which means you deal usually with less villains. Less come toward you, I guess you could say. There's more safeguards in place, and usually you have less problems with villains. But it's not to say you can't be a villain. You can be a high vibrational villain in the opposite direction. But I do encourage people to be service to others versus service to self. Usually more heroes are service to others. But that's a generality. Robin Hood stole from the rich, gave to the poor. So he could be called a villain, depending on which side of the fence you are. If you're the sheriff, well, he was a villain. To the people, he was a hero. Either way, just food for thought for you about labels and about heroes and villains. As I said, I've not met a single hero that really thought they wanted to be a hero. You know, when a girl came up to me and told me that, I was shocked that I inspired her. It's that why would I do that? I joked all the time. I was comical. You know, and I took nothing seriously. So it's like, what did I tell you that you listened to? But either way, it is what it is. Well, I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you for listening.